The camera pans across a dimly lit gym, a ring surrounded by echoes of past wars. Heavy bags swing like pendulums, their dull thuds marking time in a place where pain becomes currency. In the center of it all stands a man they call the Mexican Monster. Broad shoulders, calm eyes, and hands that have ended nights for so many who dared to test him. His name is David Benavidez, and to those who follow the sweet science, his story has become the quiet legend of modern boxing in the grand theater of combat sports. Where names like Canelo Alvarez and Gervonta Davis dominate the headlines, Benavidez exists in a different realm. He is not the sports celebrity, he is its shadow. A figure who stalks divisions, feared not for his fame, but for his inevitability. Because when David Benavidez steps into the ring, one truth always seems to unfold. Somebody's night is ending early. And yet, despite his record, despite the fear he commands, there's one name that keeps his story unfinished. One fight that the world has long whispered about, but never seen. Canelo Alvarez. For years, fans have debated the silence. Why won't the sport's biggest star face the young lion from Phoenix? The answer depends on who you ask. Some call it politics. Some call it business. But those who truly know boxing see something simpler, a quiet understanding that David Benavidez isn't just another challenger. He's a threat to everything Canelo has built. To understand why, you have to go back before the knockouts, before the fame, before the fear to a childhood that was anything but ordinary. David Benavidez was barely 3 years old when he first laced up gloves. While other kids were playing with toys, David's world was wrapped in the smell of leather and sweat. His father, Jose Benavidez Sr., ran the local gym, a place where dreams were forged and broken daily. And for young David, it was the only world he knew, his brother. Jose Jr. was already a prodigy, a teenage phenom destined for greatness. David watched from the corner, studying, absorbing, mimicking every move. He was stocky, quiet, and obsessed. Boxing wasn't just a sport to him, it was identity. A language he learned before he could even spell his name. But talent can be fragile when life gets in the way. As a teenager, David's discipline faltered. He put on weight, ballooning to 250 pounds. The once razor-sharp fighter was suddenly unrecognizable, a kid on the edge of losing everything. For many, that would have been the end. But for David, it was a wake-up call. He looked in the mirror and saw not just failure, but potential rotting in its cage. And so he made a choice to tear down the version of himself that gave up, to rebuild the one who would never surrender again. What followed was a transformation that bordered on obsessive. He trained like a man possessed hour after hour, round after round, stripping away every excuse, every ounce of weakness. When he re-emerged, he was faster, stronger, and meaner than ever. The boy who once struggled with self-control became a man of singular focus. When Benavidez turned professional at just 16 years old, the sport didn't quite know what to make of him. Too young, too raw, too aggressive. But then the fights began, and doubts disappeared. His style was unlike anything the division had seen. He threw punches like machine gun fire, 6, 7, 8 punch combinations that left opponents gasping. And yet, within that chaos, there was precision. Every shot was placed, every strike had purpose. It wasn't just violence, it was orchestration. By his 16th professional fight, Benavidez had already become a name people whispered about. Not a star yet, but a problem. His fight against Dennis Douglin would mark a pivotal chapter in that rise. Douglin was a solid fighter, durable and experienced, the kind of opponent meant to test a prospect's patience. His mother Safia worked his corner that night, a rare, tender image in a sport defined by brutality. She had watched her son train, sacrifice, and now she stood ringside, helpless. Knowing full well what he was about to walk into, across from them stood David Benavidez, -6'2", thick-shouldered, calm as a coiled spring. His father, Jose Sr., stood behind him with the quiet intensity of a man who had built a fighter from the ground up. The bell rang, and the story began. The first round was cautious, Douglin moving, jabbing, staying safe. Benavidez watched, stalking with deliberate patience. He didn't rush, didn't chase. That's what separates him from so many knockout artists. He hunts, but never wastes motion. He studies his prey until the rhythm of their panic becomes predictable. And then, without warning, the storm hit. Benavidez exploded forward, his punches flowing in violent rhythm. Left hook, right hand, uppercut, each strike landing with precision and cruelty. The crowd's noise swelled as Douglin tried to retreat, his mother's voice echoing from the corner. But against Benavidez, retreat only delays the inevitable. His offense is suffocating, not because of wild power, but because of unrelenting volume. When the referee finally intervened, Douglin was standing but broken, his spirit drained. And in that moment, something changed in how people spoke about Benavidez. He was no longer a prospect, he was a threat. That performance became a warning shot to the rest of the division. And over the years, Benavidez has lived up to every ounce of that fear. With each fight, his reputation as the most avoided man in boxing grew. Opponents spoke of his pressure, his hand speed, his power, but what truly unnerves them is his composure. He fights like a man who already knows how the night will end. And yet, despite all the knockouts, all the belts, all the talk, one question refuses to fade. Why hasn't Canelo fought him? It's the fight fans crave, the proud champion versus the hungry challenger. But as the years pass, excuses pile up. Weight classes, promotional issues, timing, the usual chessboard of boxing politics. Still, the undercurrent is clear. Canelo's path is carefully circled around. It's Benavidez, and every time another name fills that slot instead, the whispers grow louder, because deep down, everyone understands what that fight would mean. Canelo Alvarez, the king of the ring, would face not just another contender, but a mirror, a younger, hungrier reflection of everything he once was. A fighter who doesn't play by the sports marketing rules, who isn't chasing celebrity but validation. Benavidez doesn't want the fame. He wants the truth, and the truth in boxing. It can only be earned one way, by facing the best. What makes Benavidez so terrifying isn't just his power, it's his persistence. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't fade. His combinations don't stop at 3 or 4, they come in torrents, each one harder than the last. He throws punches not to win rounds, but to destroy will. And when his opponents crumble, there's no celebration, no arrogance, just a cold stare, another job finished. He's the kind of fighter you can't outbox for 12 rounds. You can run, you can counter, you can move, but sooner or later he corners you. And when he does, it's over. That's the fear that lingers in every division he touches. From super middleweight to light heavyweight, his name carries a warning. Fighters want the payday, but not the punishment. And so, the most avoided fighter and boxing title clings to him like a crown of thorns, unwanted, yet undeniable. But Benavidez isn't frustrated. He understands what's coming. He knows that every time Canelo looks his way and chooses silence, his own legend grows. Because being feared in this game is its own kind of power. And for all the talk about Canelo's legacy, there's a truth that can't be ignored. Legacies are not defined by titles or trophies, but by the fights you take when the danger is greatest. For Canelo, that danger has a name. And for David Benavidez, it's personal. He doesn't hate Canelo. He respects him. But respect doesn't mean avoidance. For Benavidez, it's about the essence of boxing. Testing yourself against the man they say you can't beat. That's the code that raised him, the fire that keeps him moving. Today, Benavidez continues his reign of destruction. Every fight he enters feels like another step toward destiny. He's perfected his craft, blending speed, accuracy, and composure into something truly rare. In an era where many fighters look to outlast, Benavidez looks to overwhelm. And in doing so, he has become the embodiment of old-school violence in a modern world. He is proof that raw, relentless talent still has a place in a sport too often ruled by business. Proof that Mexican boxing's warrior spirit isn't fading, it's evolving. And yet, the story remains unfinished. Because somewhere out there, one man still holds the peace Benavidez needs. The recognition that only comes from conquering a king, until that day comes. David Benavidez will keep fighting, Keep knocking men down. Keep forcing the sport to reckon with him. And every time another contender refuses to sign the contract, his legend grows darker, deeper, more inevitable. Because the truth is simple. You can avoid David Benavidez for a while, but not forever. He's not chasing fame. He's not chasing validation. He's chasing the moment when the world has no choice but to face him, when silence turns to confrontation. And the man they feared most finally gets the fight he deserves. And when that bell rings, and Canelo Alvarez stands across from him, if that day ever comes, it won't just be another title fight. It will be the reckoning of two eras colliding. One defined by dominance, the other by destruction. Until then, Benavidez remains what he has always been, a storm waiting on the horizon. The most avoided Mexican knockout artist alive. The man even champions whisper about in quiet rooms.